Major Mike Peeler, welcome to the cameras of the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum and Eagle Communications. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. You're an Air Force guy. We haven't had too many Air Force guys in our interview session, so we're excited to talk to you about the blue skies. And what do you fly?
I'm a C-17 pilot.
What's a T-17?
C-17 is the Air Force's newest cargo aircraft, 4-engine. Holds outsized cargo and it can land on relatively short airfields. Yeah. So it's the most capable of our new big airplane
Fun?
Fleet. Yeah, it's great. I flew the C-141 before that for a little over a year. So the old 1960s technology,
right,
as compared to now the new 1990s technology.
And these are fully jet engines, aren't they?
They are.
Okay. Yeah. How do you like that?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
You crack the throttles and hold the brakes. Do things start shaking around a little?
They can. They can.
That's good. Well, tell us how you came to be in the military. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Central Valley, California, Modesto.
Okay.
I don't have much family in the military. My uncle is in the reserves. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be a pilot. I just thought that, since I was a little boy, that's what I wanted to do. Mm. And this thing called the Air Force Academy was out there and promised opportunity. So I got in, fortunately. That was the hardest part.
Walked up, knocked on the door, and they let you in? Or is there a little more process?
There's a little more process than that. There are exams to take and applications to be filled out, papers to write, congressional recommendations to be handed out. So once you get yourself through that process and you get accepted, getting accepted I think is one of the more difficult parts.
Yeah. It's a good day in your life when that phone call or letter comes, right?
It is a good day.
Yeah, good day.
But, not being from a military family, I didn't know what to expect going to this institution. So I didn't realize when I left home a month or so after graduating high school that I wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
So I'm going off to a 4-year college, and then from there they're going to ship me off to parts unknown to me at the time.
Where's home now other than this chair in Leavenworth?
Well, it's a great question. The Air Force sent me to Washington State, to Tacoma. We spent about 4.5 years there, my wife and I. And we like to call that home. That's where I'd like to go back to. We just recently came here from Anchorage area in Alaska, from Elmendorf Air Force Base.
So many folks we've talked to, I ask them the question, where's home today? And there's always an answer, but I guess is my commentary to that is when we do a wrap-up show about this is, it's a hope for home. Like you just said, you'd like to be able to call the Tacoma area home one of these days.
That's one of the challenges of being in the military, where my brother and my sister get to establish themselves in a community, buy a house, get some equity, do some things they want to. I'm hesitant to hang up too many pictures because I know I'm going to be leaving this place in a couple months.
Yeah. It takes a certain person to adapt to that. Over how long have you been in now, Mike?
It's been just over 11 years, since I graduated from the academy.
Right.
It does take a certain type of person, but I think more than that, it takes a certain type of family. My wife is great about it. She loves moving around. So for me, that makes it easy.
My wife likes moving stuff around in the house. In fact, the plants behind me, the flag behind you, have all made a lot of trips here in the last 3 days around. But it's a rare thing to find somebody who likes moving around.
She likes the excitement.
Yeah,
so
good.
It makes it easy for me because I don't have to worry about her feelings in that respect.
How long have you been married?
Same amount of time. We got married right after we graduated from the academy. My wife and I both graduated from the Air Force Academy.
Oh, okay.
And she became a personnel officer, and I became a pilot.
Okay.
She subsequently gotten out of the military and stays at home now raising 2 little boys,
2 little boys. How old?
7 and 4.
7 and 4. How good do you like those little boys?
They're pretty great.
They're pretty great, aren't they? Yeah. What's their names?
My 7-year-old's name is Clayton,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes to school here on post. And my 4-year-old's name is Tyler.
Clayton. That's a good Weiss family name, by the way. My Uncle Clayton was a hero in my eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, World War II guy. Yeah. So, do they talk about flying with Dad?
Well, they're a little brainwashed, I have to say.
Well, you know, one man's brainwashed is another man's education. So, okay, now that we've established brainwashing is okay, tell us what they know.
They know that Dad flies airplanes,
Yeah.
and every morning or so, it's, hey, Dad, are you going to fly today?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in this school here, I don't get to fly, but they look forward to watching me.
Yeah.
You ask them where they're going to go to school, and they both know they're going to go to the Air Force Academy. That's not a bad thing right now. We'll see how that changes over time.
See how that works out as time goes by. That's good. You know, every little boy wants to grow up to be Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, at 7 and 4, they still think I'm cool.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
That might change over time also.
It doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about the Air Force and why you're here at Fort Leavenworth at the General Staff Command College. What brings you here?
The program that I'm in now, the Command and General Staff College, is considered intermediate developmental education. And in the eyes of the Air Force, this is one of those things you have to do to open doors for you, to opportunity for future employment, promotion, so on and so forth. The Air Force has a version of this school in Maxwell, Alabama.
Right.
And fortunately for me, a few of us get selected to go to a sister service school. And so I get to come here to Fort Leavenworth in beautiful Kansas, which is, I think, much nicer than Maxwell as far as location goes, and get to study with the Army.
It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. The opportunities, the things I'm getting to see here in these few months are really opening my eyes to a bigger picture than what I'd seen before.
You know, the building's different, and the seats are different, and certainly the audio-visual equipment on the walls is different, but, you know, Dwight David Eisenhower and George Patton and Bradley, Omar Bradley, all sat in those chairs a while back.
Puts a different perspective on it when you think that the Air Force, you know, was established in 1947, and the Army's been around for much, much longer and had opportunity for some great leadership.
Yeah, I think it's just tremendously inspiring for us to walk around and to watch you young men and women work your way through this environment. It's a very impressive place. Yeah. How has this experience changed your outlook on your job, on your military career?
Well, you know, we grow up in our own, what we call stovepipes. And so I got out of the academy and went to flight school. And then I went to learn how to fly this type of airplane or that. And I spent so much time just in that little bubble. And I was comfortable there. And I knew that I had to transport people and things to places around the world, but that's really all that my life entailed. When I sit down with my Army counterparts, the guys that were in the back of that airplane that I dropped off in the middle of nowhere and said, you know, have fun, I'll come back and pick you up in a month. It puts a different perspective on it. And that's just the beginning of their trip.
Right.
And the beginning of their difficulties. So it's just a broader understanding, and you can't put a value on that. It's been really a great opportunity. And then understanding the different aspects of the Army. You know, in the Air Force, we're pilots or we're maintenance or we're support.
Right.
And really that's how we kind of categorize ourselves.
Right.
But the Army does a great job of getting a little more specificity, I think, in their military soldiers and officers. You know, this guy grows up to be an infantry officer. He's very good at that, but he understands what everyone else is doing too. And I think that, you know, that's helped me to grow as an officer.
I would think it's a great opportunity for the Air Force to be able to put you in a cross-trained atmosphere, show you that. Hey, you've hauled some interesting stuff around. I
have.
Reading your bio here. My wife always tells me, did you tie it down in the back of the truck? So when we're doing nuclear airlift program, did you double check it was tied down?
We do. That'd be a big deal if that thing rolled out the back. Yeah, the nuclear airlift program is a very specified group of folks that kind of get selected to be a part of that. And it's a very specific checklist. I mean, you talk about guys that with their little ballpoint pens
Really
making sure
fine
everything
point
was
pen.
exactly done right. That was us at the time.
Yeah.
And there was no cowboy attitude out there. There was nothing about, we'll just make the mission happen. It had to go by the book, by the checklist. Because, frankly, if something went wrong, that's
Cost would be pretty high there.
pretty high cost.
It's an opportunity for folks to put a face. You're having Mike Peeler sit here and talk about, I'm one of the guys that had my hands on the controls of flying nuclear cargo from place to place, and the responsibility of doing that. What was that day like on your shoulders?
It's funny, you don't really realize it at the time, I don't think. We do a great job of training people to, especially pilots. You don't get in an airplane and you call the pilot and get wings on your chest because you know how to run a checklist. You get the wings on your chest because you know how to run the checklist and you know what to do if something goes wrong. And it just kind of becomes second nature. As things happen, I've seen that in the simulator, or we accidentally crashed in the simulator the other day, or I've seen this on the road before.
Right.
So all those experiences, that's what makes you who you are as a pilot. So the little extra burden of running another checklist and making sure that things are going properly doesn't really become a big deal at the time. Now, looking back on it, understanding the strategic impact of what could have happened if something went wrong, that's pretty significant.
The United States military lifts a lot of men and material around the world. We've talked about nuclear airlift program. What's the other end of that spectrum for Mike Peeler? What else have you hauled places that people wouldn't think about? We think of Katrina aid. We see a lot of military transport planes touch down in Africa, drop off a bunch of rice, and take off.
Yeah. For the general airlift pilot, all those things are within our scope. One day you'll be out delivering food to an evacuation program, people hit by a hurricane. The next day you're in Africa delivering things to the embassy. A week later you might be in Australia delivering something out to, often you may not know exactly what it is you've got. I mean, you've got it on your manifest, but it doesn't really mean anything to you. For you, it's just stuff. But I think the most significant thing is actually taking troops and putting them in harm's way. And it's not easy for us as aviators because there are threats when we're going into Baghdad, for example, in the early 2003. But the significance, once you drop those guys off and you take off again and you kind of get out of harm's way and you're heading back to stay in a hotel, you get those people you just dropped off, those guys are going to be there for a while. So we get to see them eyeball to eyeball and watch them as they get on and get off the airplane. And then when we get to go back and pick them up and bring them home, that's even all the better.
Is that a good day?
That's a good day.
Yeah.
Provided they're all in one piece.
Yeah.
Now we do medical evacuations also, guys that get hurt, and that's a little tougher.
Into Germany?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walter Reed?
We bring them back from Germany, back to Walter Reed, or even once they get back in the United States, take them back to to their homes, to their families. So.
Yeah. We had a fellow here from Walter Reed yesterday, talked about that a little bit, and so it's good to have a follow-up and to talk about the guy who might have dropped off some of his patients there. What are the challenges of the Air Force and the military as you look into the next 2 or 3 years, and just your job stuff, not geopolitical stuff, but your job stuff? New equipment, old equipment, new training, new requirements. What are the challenges going to face Mike Peeler?
I think the challenges that are going to face me are going to be the challenges that everyone sees. We're resource constrained, and we're doing a lot of things with few people. So we're spreading our guys pretty thin and we're wearing them out. So we need to take a look at how we do that, I think. But I think one of the challenges in the future is going to be this thing we call the information age. We're not fighting the kinetic battles that we read about in history books anymore.
Right.
there's a lot going on, in that space between the phones, if you will.
Right.
That cyberspace.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff going on there, and I think, we may need to come to terms with that and grasp that and understand it a little bit better. But for me as an aviator, it's going to be doing more with less. Fewer people to put on those airplanes to go do those missions, and that's more time away from home.
Mm-hmm. How big of a challenge is that? You said wearing them out. What's wearing them out look like?
It's hard to say, but wearing them out, when you look at the rates of guys that want to stay in the military versus get out and get an airline job, go out and work for somebody else, it's not because the pay is bad or because our facilities are poor. It's because the operations tempo is high enough that they're not getting enough time at home with mom and the kids. And that's difficult. It's difficult to put a number to that because you don't really know what all the pulls are. Some guys like myself, I enjoy leading people. I want to stay in the military because I find it challenging. But it wears on me too when I look at a 6-month or a year-long deployment in my near future.
The numbers of people with mom and kids are way, way up compared to 20 years ago. Our community of Abilene, we see a lot of families where we would have seen soldiers 20 years ago. Changes the dynamics in a big way.
It does.
Yeah. How's your family do? You've already complimented your wife. Expound on that. How does your family deal with military life?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have married a wonderful woman who grew up in the military. Her dad was in the Army. And so she understands. I think at the most basic level, just kind of understanding what's going on helps a lot. And then she was in the Air Force for 5 years, so she understands a little bit more. And she understands the things that are pulling on my time from within the military and the things that are pulling on my time from within the family. And to have a balance there somehow, she's able to work that out, and she's phenomenal. But I don't see that across the board. Not everyone has that opportunity.
Sure.
So I'm very fortunate. And my 2 little boys, for the last couple of years, they haven't seen me gone as much as I was early on when I was flying actively. I think the next few years are going to be a stress on them because I'm going to be deployed more than I have been, in a school environment.
Right. Well, there's a lot of folks at home that'll be watching this program and whose wife may not be, or it may be the wife watching the program who didn't grow up and have military experience and does not maybe understand. What can Mike Peeler say to be helpful to that family that just doesn't quite understand the resource requirement on Dad? Got any words to say?
I wish you could spend time with my wife.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say because I don't fully understand her side of the story. I know that she's good at it, and I know that she helps me and builds me up so that I can do these things and says, honey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I wish I knew what to. I wish I knew the magic words to say to the spouse.
Is the folks that have sat in your chair here all show extreme level of competence and confidence and training and an ability to ascribe understanding to the word duty that makes you understand. I would imagine that helps your wife to understand. It's important for us civilians to come to a greater level of understand what all of those words mean to the men and women who serve us, keep us safe, provide freedom, opportunity. We need to understand. Hopefully these programs will help do that, Mike.
Hopefully they will.
Yeah.
We've got a job to do. At the very basic level of understanding, I come to work in the mornings, I study, and I go home. That's my job here. My job here is to gain some more knowledge so that I can go back to the Air Force and hopefully be a better leader. But when you talk about the military environment and what these guys are doing overseas, they're given a mission to go do, and they don't get a choice whether or not they want to show up or call in sick today. They've got to go do it. And the burden on the family back home is that they have to let them go do it. That's what they've signed up for. Like it or not, That's what they have to do. And so working as a team to figure out the best way to make that happen, and so that everyone has a smile on their face, that's the challenge.
How is it what boost does it give Mike Peeler to look in the rearview mirror of the car as you drive out, or as you climb up the plane and you look back and you see your wife who does understand, and you know you have that 100% support?
That's
How
it.
important is that to you?
Knowing that she has it under control is absolutely essential for me. If she didn't, honestly, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't have taken the risk of staying in the military and making it a career. Knowing that my wife has it under control when I walk out the door, no matter if I'm going for a day, a month, or a year, that is essential to me being able to do my job. If I had to think about her and the kids and if they're going to be okay every day, it wouldn't be worth it. The stress on me would be too much, and I'd have to call it quits.
You know, I think we see the other side of that paradigm in some of our communities. I think we see men that are so worried about the home front that their focus is, you simply run out of energy and focus. I don't know how you could do that. I'm in your seat, I guess. I don't know how I could do that. But I do think we see it in our communities, and people who just run out of gas in that worry.
Well, it's been a long, difficult war over the last 8 years. And the gains are difficult to see, especially for the American public.
Right.
You know, you're not looking at, we've taken so much more ground like we did during the World Wars.
Right.
So it's difficult to see what are we getting out of all this effort we're putting forth. And so, there's a level of understanding there that, the general public doesn't have, but, maybe they don't need it. I don't know.
What do you think? Think we need a better understanding of that, or no?
I think we need to figure out what it is exactly that we're trying to do and make that clear to the public so that they understand what the end result looks like. If we can do that and then we can show progress toward that end result, I think that'll help everyone.
We had an armor fellow here the other day who said that I asked some question like, what was your most significant contribution or something during this time of service? And he said he thought that when the kids came out of the houses and were able to play in the street, and the civilian told him that was such a blessing to have that, to know that their kids could go play in the street for 5 minutes safely because of the American presence there. And to me, that just, I have children as well, that just brought it home deep. It said a taste of freedom, a taste of security.
We have it, so we're so lucky in the U.S. We're so fortunate that our culture allows this. There's no limited amount of corruption, limited amount of violence in the streets. And we take that for granted, and we don't understand what that means. And how do we translate that to another culture who hasn't seen that for, 50, 100, maybe forever? And having not seen that, how do we build their confidence that it's a good thing, that they should go toward that, euphoria, if you will, of freedom? Yeah, I think, for me, a lot of what I do is because I want to take care of my family. I'm in the military because I enjoy it. I like the challenge. But in the end, I think we're all here because we want our kids to be able to play safely in the streets.
Are you a right and wrong guy?
For the most part.
Then the follow-up question is, at the end of the day, is your service to our country the right thing for Mike Peeler?
It is.
Yeah. Is it the right thing for my family that you're serving me?
I hope so. I hope that what I'm doing is not just for Mike Peeler. That what I'm doing is for your family and for my neighbors and for our country's neighbors as well.
Is it the right thing to do for 5 minutes of freedom for that Iraqi child in the street?
I think it's the right thing to do to build an opportunity for a lifetime of freedom.
How do you know if you want the meal if you haven't had a taste?
Right. Hopefully we're giving them a taste.
Yeah. Well, you have little boys.
I do.
You do. That want to go to the Air Force Academy, fly a plane.
They're brainwashed.
Do they run around the house like this?
Often they do.
Often. Okay. Well, I want you to spend the last couple minutes of our time on camera today and to put into the archives of the Eisenhower Presidential Library and Museum something that those boys can watch 40 years from now and know that their dad spoke to them and their mother. The camera's right behind me. Have at it.
Tell them something that
It's your time. Your boys.
I don't know if I can do that.
You can do it.
It's hard to do. You know, every day I go to work and I leave those boys at home. And right now it's easy because I get to go see them at night. But I know someday I'm going to be gone for a while. And they're going to be there without me. It may be a year, it may be longer. But I want them to know that everything I do is for them. It's for you that I'm serving. And I love you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mike Peeler.
I'm sorry I did that.
No, sorry. Your sons will forever be grateful. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.